Honestly, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed because of the number of people who are here. Normally, when you are organizing something like that in New York, this room will be filled with capacity. But because of the way the communication went, that is why you see a lot of people here. I think next time we have to do it right. You inform us well ahead of time, and then we will try to engage all the Ghanaian communities to be present. And I know that this is not going to be your last visit. You're coming again. So next time, let us know ahead of time so that we can organize better and get the full impact of your message. And some some of us can even put our experience at your disposal so that we can utilize what we know. Before I went to Parliament, I was a returning officer with the Electoral Commission. So we can rely on our experience and give advice. So next time, please let us know. We'll try to bring as many people as possible. And then we'll engage them and take it practical. Our main focus now is on Ropaa and how it can be implemented. The last time Dr. Atipa was here, he intimated to me that next year we are coming to register Ghanaians. So in fact, I thought that registration would be taking place before we hear from the Electoral Commission. This time we've been taking on our work. So please, you have to forgive us for this poor representation. And then next time you see what New York has to show. So on behalf of the Ghana Mission and the United Nations and the Ghana Consulate, I want to welcome you and give us the message, tell us what you brought to us so that we understand how Ropaa will be implemented, and have a nice day. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, you didn't give that one.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
Prof, if I may ask,
Yeah.
how were you the return officer?
Oh, at that time they call it Ayawaso constituency, and it started from Legon to Commission, and I was the returning officer. With my VW Beetle, I was bringing on my first time.
Thank you. Please, housekeeping, please. Your cell phone, please put it on silent. So, okay, no. At this point, I'll call the one and only Kofi Ropaa to tell us about the purpose and our mission of Ropaa. He has been in the forefront to do so, and I know that tonight most of you or some of you who haven't heard about him will get to know who Mr. Kofi Ropaa, Dr. Kofi Ropaa. Welcome.
Okay. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Welcome, members of the EC Ropaa Committee. You know, you measure success in different ways. Okay? You measure success in this instance not by how many people are listening to what may happen, but by the substance that for the first time in 27 years, Ghanaians living abroad are being recognized. The President of Ghana, the Electoral Commission, has sent an 8-person delegation to listen to us. It doesn't matter how many people cheer. It is important how few have sensible things to say to move the process forward. And at this point, I'm going to put a surprise in there. I'm going to call a person who is in this room with whom we started to think about the possibility of Ghanaians abroad voting. And we tried with the idea, and at that time, the Parliament of Ghana debated the issue. This is back in 2000. They were debating the issue, and we got a visit from somebody from the East, whose name I wouldn't mention, who came to visit, and he first went to visit his friend in Houston, Jermaine Nkrumah, who runs the Diaspora Network TV. So he visited Jermaine and said, hey guys, don't fall asleep, because Parliament is debating the issue and they are talking about you guys voting. But for Ghanaians, it doesn't mean anything. Ghanaians living in Ghana. so the facts don't mean anything to them. They have to see your faces. You have to go to Ghana and show your. So Jermaine called me, and he sent this gentleman from the EC to New York. He came alone, and Prof, you were there.
Yes.
We had a meeting at that time. You were not at the mission as you were there, and this gentleman was also there, and we talked about the possibility of us showing our faces in Ghana. So I called this good friend of mine, and we said, hey, what do we do next? And we said, well, we have to pull a delegation of 13 people from around the world to go to Ghana. So we raised the money. Me and this gentleman raised the money. $40,000 we raised in short order. And we picked 13 people from the US, most of Botswana, from the UK, and later on from Nigeria and Togo. And we went to Ghana and we besieged Ghana. We took over the radio. I don't know how many of you even remember any of that. We took over and we changed the dialogue, because for the first time Ghanaians saw that Ghanaians living abroad were real and they cared. There were 13 of us. So imagine that 14 years later, now we are here at this point with an 8-person delegation all the way from Ghana to listen to us. So let us make this meeting fruitful. Actually, I love this size because it means that we can really engage. Because we are going to talk about things that may be over the head of a lot of people. Okay? So it is only a few people. We have a saying that Bakufo the Kukusuno, Namasayari, meaning one person shoots the elephant and then the whole village eats it. Not the one person. Okay? So before I go into what I call the timeline of Ropaa, which you have, I'll walk you through it. I want my friend Benjamin Frifa to stand up and take a bow. Okay, so why are we here? We are here because in 1992, I'm going to take us through a panorama. Ghana wrote a constitution that was adopted in May 8, 19. You can follow right along. In this year, that's the Ropaa timeline. And if I say anything wrong, the experts are here. They will correct me. Okay? But the Constitution, in this chapter 7, representation of the people. So at this point, it was raw. It wasn't Ropaa. It was just raw. Representation of the people. Article 42, and it said, every citizen of Ghana, listen to this carefully, of 18 years of age or above and of sound mind has the right to vote and is entitled to be registered as a voter for the purposes of public election and referendum. As we speak, Ghana is getting ready for a referendum. Note that the Constitution says every citizen of Ghana. It doesn't say only citizens living in Ghana have the right to vote. It says every citizen of Ghana. Very, very important. Meaning, you can live in Togo, so long as you're a citizen of Ghana, you can vote. You can live in Nigeria, so long as you're a citizen of Ghana, you can vote. New York, Chicago, UK, Denmark, it doesn't matter. It says every citizen. Then what happened is that in the same year, 1992, before they had elections, I believe the 92 elections were in November. Before they had the elections in November, I call it the cloak of darkness. Something happened. Something happened where they put, this was the PNDC law 284. They put something in there that said, only officials who work for Ghana missions abroad or the United Nations, such like Samuel Amakun, Dr. Amakun here. So of all of us in this room, only Dr. Amakun can vote. That is what it is right now, or it was about August 1992. So how did we go from every citizen to only those who work for Ghana Mission and the UN can vote. So you begin to see that there's a path of discrimination that has been established. Somebody has intentionally singled out a small group of Ghanaians to be able to vote and has disenfranchised the bigger group. Now keep paying attention. So we go along and take the ride with me. And so that lingered around. It lingered around. So when we got involved and said this has to change, and as I said, we took our delegation. At that time, we called ourselves, if I remember, Diaspora Vote Committee. Right. We called ourselves. And we went to Ghana. And if maybe you can chime in. What happened?
2005. And the group was selected carefully. Dr. Jenny Mboatien, who was the Deputy Attorney General of Kentucky, was the oldest person, I should say. Phoebe Annan, who was also born in Ghana but was raised here, was the youngest person. There was an NDC person, Alhaji Abbas. There was an NDC MPP group. Dr. Kwame Frimpong represented Botswana. Nana JB represented the UK.
Yourself.
And myself, Jermaine from Houston, Pancho Kabramenu, who else? Amo Japan. So it was a broad section of Ghanaians. So when we got to Ghana, the first place we went was the Attorney General's office. And we went there because it was the Attorney General who believed that he sort of registered the bill on behalf of the government. So we went to the Attorney General's office to welcome him and then also thank him for doing that for us. And after that, we went to Parliament, and then we went to see the Chief Imam. We went to the Vice President. President Kufuor was not in the so we met with the Vice President, the late Honorable Aliyu Muhammad. And after that, we had a debate.
We had a press conference.
Yeah, we had a press conference at the National Press Center. And then we also had a debate at Legon to engage with the students. And after that, we descended onto the airwaves in different regions. Myself, Michael Bafo, and Pancho, we went to the Ashanti region. Well, Kesban, we met with NDC representatives on a one-on-one debate, and similar arrangements were done in different regions. So after 2 weeks, I believe, we came back, and in 2006, actually, May 2006, we organized a conference in Montreal to help to think about the implementation of Ropaa. So this was May 20 of 2006. And we had representatives from international organizations such as AFIS and the UNDP who were there. And the end result of the conference was the leader. And we came up with implementation guidelines that was sent to Ghana, to the Electoral Commission on our behalf. So that was at least in the interim some of the activities that took place.
Excellent, thank you. So you see how hard we worked. And we did all this in Ghana over something like 5 days.
Yes.
Okay. So in February, on February 24, 2006, the Parliament of Ghana passed a landmark Representation of the People Amendment Act, which is now, so it went from Ropaa, amending the Representation of the People Law, which is the PNGC Law 284. And what did it amend? It amended two critical things. It's very important. One is in the PNDC Law 284, there was something in there, and they will discuss it, that said that in order to be qualified to vote in Ghana, you must be a resident of your polling station for at least 5 years. Of course, nobody was from all the people in Accra, Kumasi, they don't go and live there. Who was measuring who had been there. So one of the amendments was that you can only hail from the area. So you don't have to necessarily reside. So Dr. Bosman, the question of residence, when we get into our discussions, we have something to hold on to. So the Ropaa amended that, then it did something that is the cause of. Instead of saying that only the likes of Dr. Samuel Mwakon can vote, it said all of us can now vote. It said, the amendment said that citizens, Ghanaian citizens abroad, Ghanaians is not coming through. Ghanaian citizens abroad can be registered, thank you, can be registered to vote. Hooray! One. That was 2006. But our victory was short-lived because, as the FIFA said, we were expecting, the Electoral Committee was expecting, 2008 we will vote. Because after all, what is the point of making the law in 2006 if you can't expect that you are going to vote in the immediately coming election year? So that's why we had that conference in Montreal and invited some of the people I think you tried to meet in DC to come and walk us through overseas voting logistics. Of course, at that time there was no such group as you, so we were trying to do it ourselves. And then we were disappointed. As a matter of fact, and FIFA, you remember that the EC swore that they were coming, right?
Yes.
That they were sending representatives to Montreal. We went to the airport, nobody showed. When we realized that we had a fight on our hands and we can't. That was Act 699 that came into being now for 13 years and has not been implemented. So then what happens? So that's when Progressive Alliance came into being. And so with Progressive Alliance movement, and me lecturing them and explaining all these things to them, and I take off my hat to Progressive Alliance movement, they said, Kofi, we will fight with you. This is injustice, and we are thankful that you've led the fight and you haven't given up. So we will fight with you. So Bali, they were very loyal, collecting money, and we raised some money and said the only thing left for us to do, Kofi Adamandla Kofi, was always helping us, writing up the progress and what we're doing and so on, is to take this to the court. But it wasn't easy to just take it to court because there was some kind of conspiracy against us. There was some kind of conspiracy against having Act 699 Nasir is a member of PAM working. So every lawyer that we tried to reach turned us down. Or sometimes they will quote some huge amount. Somebody said they would charge us $90,000. And I said, what? I mean, we're not getting anything out of this deal. We're fighting for right. So we let him go. And another one came and said, oh, give me half of what the other guy was going to charge you. I said, how do you know what he was? Oh, I said, oh, this is Ghana. Everybody knows. So at that time, the CEO of PAM was Kofi Cranton. Kofi, stand up. And Kofi went to Ghana to comb the bushes, work hard. He called me and said, oh, Chairman, we have found a vibrant lawyer who understands that if he takes this case, it's going to make him. It will define his own future. So he will take the case for something that we can afford. And that was Samson Anyenini Ladi. So we talked, we promised to cooperate with him and do all the research. And thankfully, on December 18, 2017, His Lordship, Justice Anthony Pedro, whose sister is right here. Raise your hand. Okay. ruled in our favor. And what does it mean he ruled in our favor? One, he recognized that we have been discriminated against. Okay, as Act 699 did. Two, he recognized that the Electoral Commission, and I don't hold no punches here, the Electoral Commission has been negligent and deliberate in not implementing Act 699 because Act 699 says only the electoral, as a matter of fact, the Constitution, Article 51, says only the Electoral Commission can come up with what they call the constitutional instrument to cause people to be registered and to vote. So the judge ordered what they call in law mandamus, meaning forcing somebody to do what they are expected to do, and said, this is important, that by December 31, 2018, the Electoral Commission should come up with a hows and wheres for us to vote. We were watching, we were writing to the Electoral Commission all the time, reminding them the clock is ticking, and they made the clock tick. And in January 2019, the Electoral Commission went to court to ask for extension. Of course, we opposed it, but they were granted the extension, and I believe that extension goes through January 2020. So here they are. They have very short time to work. If the time this extension expires, they have to come up with a constitutional instrument because we will not stand for another extension. In fact, no court in Ghana will grant them another extension. And Dr. Justice Anthony Yeboah also said something else. He said to effect us voting in 2020, and we're going to talk about that. Is 2020 feasible? We're going to talk. As far as we are concerned, we say yes, it is, and we share our ideas why we think so. So at this point, I will stop and turn it over to Dr. Bosman Sari to lead the rest of the discussion. I don't want to steal their thunder. And we will all share banter going back and forth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Boatin. We are looking at the time. What time do we have to close?
We can go as long as we need.
Okay.
We waited all this long time.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we really appreciate the explanations you've given. And just to continue from where you left off, I think it will be better for me to introduce the team we have over here. On my extreme right-hand side is Mrs. Sylvia Ano. Mrs. Ano mission. Here is Mr. Evans Nimakon. This committee is made up of 9 members. 9 members, 3 from political parties, 3 from the Electoral Commission, and 3 from civil society. Mr. Nimakon represents the New Patriotic Party. The main rep from the New Patriotic Party is Mr. John Boedu, but he wasn't able to come, so Mr. Nimakon is representing him. Then next to Mr. Nimakon, we have Dr. Kojo Asante. Dr. Asante works with Ghana Center for Democracy and Development. He's a lawyer by profession and also a political scientist. So he is representing civil society organizations in Ghana, and he is one of them. The next to him is Reverend Dr. Enesedu Jemfi, who is also representing civil society organizations in Ghana, and also specifically from the National Peace Council. Reverend is also the president of the Ghana Baptist Convention. That's a very large congregation. And apart from that, the vice president of the African Baptist Churches. Then next to him, we have the deputy chairman for operations at the Electoral Commission. He is not a member of this committee, but he's here because the Electoral Commission must implement Ropaa. And when it comes to the Electoral Commission, our core work when it comes to elections, he is the one in charge. So he's here to give some input which will be relevant. Appointing officials when it comes to elections. Until his appointment, he was the director of the Electoral Commission, director of Electoral Services. Before then, he was the Ashanti Regional Director of the Electoral Commission, and also up till 2011, the Central Regional Director of the Electoral Commission. Has been a district officer of the Electoral Commission. So for the Electoral Commission work, he's a veteran in that particular area. Then we have Mr. Percival Kofi Apalo. He represents all the minor political parties in Ghana. Currently, we have 25 parties in our books. So we have the MPP. The parties are many. The law allows them to form. So with the MPP has one rep, the NDC has one rep. Unfortunately, he was supposed to join us today, but we haven't heard from him. It's a free anchor. So we are hoping by tomorrow we will know what actually transpired. And he represents all the other 23 political parties. Also the Liberal Party of Ghana. Until last year, the Liberal Party was known as the Independent People's Party. So he's a president in waiting. That's what he tells me. The party LPG is not the same as the gas, so the one for cooking. Of Ghana, very, very important. Then we have Mr. Christian Owusu Parry. Mr. Parry until recently was the Director of Administration for the Electoral Commission. But in 2011, the Electoral Commission did a similar exercise, and he was the Secretary. So in terms of institutional memory regarding this particular activity, is well versed, and is also the Secretary of this Ropaa committee. The other member who is not here is Commissioner Adjoa Abrefa. She couldn't make it, one of our commissioners. And I am Boss Manasari, currently chairing the Ropaa committee and also a deputy chairman of the Electoral Commission in charge of corporate services. So thank you very, very much. We want the discussion to be so extensive, a lot of questions, all of us will be asking, then we'll be responding. And just to continue from what where Dr. Boatin took us to.
Before you continue, I want us to acknowledge the chairman
of the Progressive People's Party. Oh, okay. Oh, Mr. Hammond. Dr. Boatin, won't it be good for an introduction so that we know who is here?
You mean the people here?
Yes. At least so where you stay, if you are representing NDC, MPP, PPP, etc.
I guess you don't want to go home today, so because it continues. We'll try to wrap it up so everybody can go, but hey, since you have the time. Mr. Nasiru, please kindly introduce yourself. And we'll move on to the next and next.
Good evening.
Nice and short.
Right. My name is Nasir Ibrahim, a member of Progressive Alliance Movement. Thank you.
I like the voice.
Kwame Kusu, Vice Chair of Progressive Alliance Movement.
My name is Pastor Michael. I'm a member for the Progressive Alliance.
My name is Poku Esubonten. I'm a member of Progressive Alliance Movement.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Akoya. I'm an academic with the researcher.
Bafo Joe, Chairman, NDC New York.
Marion Boatin, wife of Kofi Boatin. Who's your name? My name is Nana Dima. Queen Mother of
Ghana's Consul General to New York.
Reverend Samuel Nana Poku, Abundant Life Baptist Church Senior Pastor, Vice President of Ghanaian Ministers Fellowship in New York.
Justice, your voice,
My name is David Danko. I'm a member of MPP.
My name is Abdullahi Abbas Ahmed. I'm a technologist and a designer.
My name is Cesar Hansen. Chief Justice. Yeah, I'm Justice, your boy's nephew.
Kofi Ayu, editor, Amanda newspaper.
Kosi Afrika, former vice chair of MPP USA.
Haji Baba Suari, Ghanaian citizen. Jaula Suleiman, Ghanaian citizen. A potential. I'm just kidding.
My name is Musa Fatao, a Ghanaian living abroad, and I organizer of Bonjala Youth Association in America.
My name is Francis Abanga. I'm the Vice President of UPEC, UPEC Apatis Community of Ghana, resident here in North America.
My name is James Danko. I'm an observer. Just watching, observer. Observer.
Sec Boateng, Senior Advisor, New Project Party, New York branch.
Apostle Lord from Alenson Radio.
Kofi Kranting, independent candidate.
Former U.S. Africa Civil Ambassador and a former Mr. Africa First.
Echo Micah, a member, Progressive Alliance Movement.
Obedankwa, the current treasurer, Progressive Alliance.
Francis Aisi, Vice President, Kwapai Feko, New York.
Fred Bowman, an observer.
Kofi Amina, observer. Me, I will take PPP from Ghana.
Yes, sir.
Yahweh Jaffa, a Ghanaian citizen.
Haji Mada, observer. Osebo Uncle Charles, observer. Prince Osebonsu, former of Graphic Group Communications and a Ghanaian freelance journalist.
Thank you all very much. Now we know who is here, friend or foe. Please.
Just for some clarity, those who are observers, are you going to participate or you are only going to observe? You are allowed to participate. Most of the time, we'll just address some, and my colleagues are here to respond to almost all the issues that we've been looking at. I think there are 3 or 4 critical areas. So we did consultations in all the 10 regional capitals, meeting Ghanaians, because Dr. Boateng mentioned that the Electoral Commission was given an extension. We all know from 2017 to 2018, there were a lot of challenges at the electoral. The 3 top executives were removed. The new executive took over on 18. We had a referendum before us. So we noticed that we couldn't to comply with the ruling of the court. Dr. Boateng mentioned the mandamus, which compelled the Electoral Commission to do certain things. And in addition to the mandamus, the ruling of the court was that in addition to all the 5 people who took the commission to court, the Electoral Commission should do what was necessary and what was proper to ensure that all Ghanaians who were similarly situated, all Ghanaians living elsewhere would also be given the chance to vote. So we noticed that we were not in a position to fulfill. So the commission met and said something was done in 2011, but 2011 and 2018, a lot of things have occurred. So there was the need to put a new team together. So when the new team was put together, the team decided that let's look at the 2011 report. But beyond that, can we also do another round of consultations? Because this is a very critical thing. And when you look at Ghana's politics, the MPP and the NDC, they are almost neck and neck. And anything we do as Electoral Commission, the parties are looking for what are the advantages to them, what are the disadvantages to them. And we thought that although the law was clearly there that the Electoral Commission must ensure Ghanaians abroad will take part in the voting process, the courts, by their mandate, will not know the details, what are the technicalities that will go into the Electoral Commission ensuring that Ghanaians abroad will vote. So we decided that let's do something that will give it some level of legitimacy. So let's meet Ghanaians. So we started with some consultations in Accra. And when you look at the terms of reference of the committee, we were expected to look at some of the best practices around doing it. And even beyond that, we're also supposed to come up with a constitutional instrument. You mentioned Article 51 of the Constitution, which gives the Electoral Commission the right to come up with a constitutional instrument. So the Commission was taking that into consideration. So we started something in Accra. We met the media, we met political party representatives, other civil society organizations, traditional authorities. Then from there we went to Cape Coast, Takoradi, and all the other regional capitals. And when we came back, we even met some Ghanaians from different countries. We met them also in Accra. And based on all this consultation, we noticed that we had a lot of support for Ghanaians abroad taking part in the vote. But we also decided that we didn't want to limit to Ghana alone. So we went to Senegal, and the people of Senegal, we met their election authorities. We were hosted by Ghana's ambassador to Senegal, and they explained to us how they are able to do it. And we thought that if the Senegalese people could do it this effectively, then there is something we can also learn from that. Then we also said it was important we came to the USA. So those discussions were also held, and we began the process. But because the Electoral Commission has a lot of activities, as we speak now, we are preparing for, we are doing the transfers, voting for the district level election, and you know there's another referendum. So time is a problem for us. So we are doing a lot of things. So that's why some of the communications didn't go properly. So at our level, we want to meet the deadline of the call, but we thought that by coming here and looking at how a country like Senegal, they do it, and other countries practice external, some ideas, so that we look at how, at the end of the day, if we want to operationalize it in 2020 and beyond, it can be done. And in all our consultations, there have been certain 4 critical things which have always stood out. Number one is who qualifies as a citizen of Ghana. And you know, people are Ghanaians, but when you say you are a citizen of, when you look at the Ropaa, the law talks about people who are residents. And the lawyers have explained to us that when the interpretation section of the law, when they talk about a resident, what it means is that these are people who are recognized in the country where they live as people who are legal, not people who are illegal and their have come out. They have evidence indicating that they are Ghanaians. Although we know your name is Opong, Owusu, Akwete, etc., but what shows that you are indeed recognized in the country where you are staying? And it also came out, if somebody is a dual citizen, what happens? Must the person demonstrate both citizenship? Very, very important. Then the next issue also has to do with the registration centers. You know, one thing which is very, very critical is that if you want to go to a country like the USA, at which places are you going to register them? In Ghana, there are rules in place, but once you begin to move to another jurisdiction, then there are certain issues that must be taken into consideration. Then number 3, it also has to do with which people must be the registration officials. In Ghana, when we are doing registration, the EC will normally engage temporary workers. Recently, when we did the exhibition, we engaged about 32,000 people who are not part of the EC system. And in these elections coming up, December 17, we have the unit committee election, we have the district assembly, and we also have the referendum. In all, we are going, but we are operating with 30,000, almost 31 to 32,000 polling station. And at each polling station, the commission is going to engage about 6 people. So 6 times almost 32,000, you are looking at something around 200,000. So assuming we are doing the Ropaa, which people are going to be working on the registration, how do we engage them? Do we have to bring people from Ghana to come and do that? Or among the Ghanaian communities in the various countries, are we going to employ some people to do that? And if we are going to employ them from here, are they going to be volunteering for free for Ghana, or they must be paid? And we should also take into consideration that in Ghana, when we engage them, on the average exhibition, we'll pay them 100 Ghana cedis a day. I think it's usually about 80 Ghana cedis a day. Can you pay the same amount when you come to the USA, when you go to Canada, etc.? So budgetary issue. Then finally, in which types of elections should Ropaa immediately apply? When you look at the ruling of the High Court judge, Justice Yabua made it very clear that all the Ghanaians abroad must take part in all public elections and referenda, meaning that the district assembly elections, which is in December, Ghanaians abroad must be part. All types of public elections and referenda, that's technically. But we are looking at, is this very, very practical? Is this something that can be done immediately? So these are the 4 critical areas that have come up strongly for discussion. And let me paint the picture of how they do it in Senegal. They told us that when they go to a country, the threshold, the one they can establish that 200 people in that country, then election must take place. Then they will go ahead to form an electoral commission in that particular country. Among the Ghanaian community in that particular, let me say the Senegalese community, they will appoint 3 individuals. The 3 individuals will constitute the Electoral Commission of Senegal in that particular country. Then out of the 3 individuals, they will get 1 person from the embassy in that particular country to be a secretary. So these people will be the Electoral Commission, and they will be receiving. They may end up appointing people as returning officers, appointing people as presiding members, etc. And they make sure they appoint individuals who don't identify with any political party. Like people who among the Ghanaians, they know them to be very, very neutral. They are not for party A or party B. So when we understood their system, we thought it was something that would be very, very see the Ropaa. If we want to go by what we do in Ghana, the budget will even be 3 times what we do in Ghana. But if you pay someone, I think you can pay same in New York. And this will also require some Ghanaians must come here, hotel bills and other things, which will be a lot. I think about 2 weeks ago, we had the ministry, and even the money, the budget, what we have proposed we want in 2020, it's become a major battle. They are trying to say there's a ceiling. And so the money is always a challenge. But Ropaa is captured in our 2020 budget. And as at the commission level, Dr. Boateng mentioned that we can't go to the court for any extension, which we know that. So we want to do whatever is proper to ensure that by January the CI will go to Parliament. And when the CI goes to Parliament, that means from the Electoral Commission's perspective, we know in 2020 we are going to have a Ropaa. And last week, the CI, the discussions have a separate, or should we have a composite CI for both Ropaa and what we will do in Ghana? And the decision was that we are going to have a composite document, a new CI for the 2020 and beyond, and that will have a section for Ropaa. So from the perspective of the Electoral Commission, we know we are going to do it. We are going to send the document to Parliament. And when it goes to Parliament, we can always say that we have done our part, and the rest is up to the Parliament to pass it. And when it goes to Parliament, within 21 working days, it must pass, unless they have some issues with it. So from our angle, we are doing whatever is necessary, whatever is appropriate to ensure that Ghanaians abroad will take part in the political process. That's very, very important. But now back to the 4 things I meant. Those are the areas. And then finally, we have how to resolve disputes. We know once you move to another country, and let's say somebody engages in election violations, how do we punish that particular person? In Ghana, when you do it, we know we can easily address that. But when you do it in New York City, maybe even in our embassies, we have this jurisdiction which allows Ghana laws to work in our embassies. But you look at a country like the USA. I lived in Ohio for about 7 years, and those days when I was there, the state of Ohio, they were talking of about 15,000 Ghanaians living there. And I believe the number should even be higher in a place like New York. So that means in the state of Ohio alone, we can be looking at currently our threshold for polling stations is usually about 800. And we are even thinking of going to about 500 or 600. So that means a state like Ohio, you are looking at over 10 polling stations. You come to New York City, you are looking at maybe 15 or so. And you go to Worcester, people tell me there are a lot of Ghanaians over there. You are looking at several polling stations. So when people engage in, how do we punish this individual? So now, our mission here is not to discuss whether should Ghanaians abroad vote or they shouldn't vote. Now, Ghanaians abroad are supposed to vote. So we want you to assist us to be able to divide one seat, the person practical. And this is doable. And I also mentioned that there are party representatives. Interestingly, when we go, we don't talk about Party A or Party B. This is a Ghana project and want to see how it can be done in a manner that all Ghanaians will have confidence in the system. And that's what we are trying to do. So I give the microphone to Madam MC. Anyone who has questions or contributions, you just bring it, and my colleagues are here for us to respond to all these 5 thematic areas.
Thank you very much, Dr. Benson. I have you right. Yes. If you don't have, raise your hand and you'll have it, because I know that I did, and I have few questions here. So, Obed, please help me out with the card so they can write your question on. I have Musa Fatau, please write. The question is, what to ensure availability of a credible register of all Ghanaians living everywhere outside Ghana? That's what the Ropaa is. Okay. So what's the registration?
Okay,
oh, okay, 2 or 3 questions. Okay. Oh, you're interested in the question? He wants to
write, record it. You want to write the question.
Why do I have to give my job out?
No.
Qualifies to vote. That's the first issue that we need to address. Now, right, so let's deal with that question. And once we are able to resolve that, we'll come to it. Right. So, who is a Ghanaian who is qualified to vote? In Ghana, you must have some documentary evidence to show that you are a Ghanaian, resident in a particular locality. So you either have a passport, you have a driver's license, you have a Ghana card, So right. Those things are captured in the production of the Ghana card. So right now with the Ghana card, your social security number, all those things are captured, and then your digital address is also there. So that is clear. We can easily see that once you have a Ghana card, you are a Ghanaian. Now we're looking at the Ghanaian resident abroad. That's the question that was raised, the issue that was raised. How do we identify you as a Ghanaian? Passport is number one. Is it valid or is it dead? That's the first issue. Two, what evidence do we have that you are resident in a particular country? Some people were arguing in some of our forums that any Ghanaian, once is a Ghanaian. The issue is that if you go to, let's say, Europe, between Amsterdam and Belgium, I can, if you don't show residency, I can vote in Belgium and vote in Amsterdam. So there is a need for us to prove residency. So that is the issue that we are talking about. So how do you prove residency in a particular country? So first, what makes you a Ghanaian? What proves that you have the residency to be there? Once we capture these things, then we are now moving into the area where legitimately somebody can then register to be on the voters register.
I just want to add so that at least you know the state of play in terms of what we have gotten from our consultation. So just to add to what Reverend has said. So the other is citizenship. So again, now the law is very clear. As long as you hold a Ghanaian passport and you hold your other nationality, because you have a Ghanaian passport, right? That's not an issue. The more difficult issue is whether or not residence permit should be official residence permit and not, right? So if I show my address in the Bronx, I show you utility bills, does that prove that I'm a resident? Or I have to show my visa or my green card or some other evidence of permanent residency or temporary residency or any type of residency. So that's those are.
Let's deal with that first.
Oh, you can have a seat. Please hold on. Let them answer, then if anything we can.
No, they are asking the question.
Yes.
They want input from us.
Right.
So let's do it one at a time.
Yes, just addressing the issue on the credible register. And I think my two colleagues actually dealt with if as a commission we want to produce a credible register, the act is grounded in law. First of all, there should be some qualifications to get onto the voters register. And then we look at the age. In Ghana, what the law says, 1991, you must be 18 years and also be of mind. And the question citizen also, which has been actually addressed and will also be discussing, also comes into mind. And per the law also, you must be a resident or an ordinary resident. The difference is that if you are an ordinary resident, not necessarily that you must stay in the area. At times you have a family, you move there, occasions and other things. Then you must also not by any law enforced from registering as a voter. For instance, if you've been sentenced in a sense that found guilty of an electoral offense, you can also not be registered. So, in a nutshell, for us to produce a credible register, and in order to get an accurate and the qualities, these are the requirements that we look at before we get your register. We, for instance, at every stage we have all the main issues, that is questions of challenges when we come to registration. How do we resolve some of these things? In Ghana, we have district registration review, and these are the committees which deals with challenges during registration. So these are the things that we go through to get a credible register. After that, the register is exhibited, and anyone who went to register gets to the exhibition center and then check whether his or his data was correctly captured before it goes through the magistrates and other things to for them to certify the register. So it goes through a lot of processes before it becomes the final register that we use for them as credible. Thank you.
That's also one of the requirements is to take your biometric fingerprint. So whoever registers, your thumbprint, your fingers must be picked. And that is one of the surest things that we do, what is part of our process.
Madam, can I contribute?
I think I'll give the flashcards to write so we will control. If you want to ask a question, take the card and write so we can leave you on time. I'll take 2 people. This gentleman raised his hand.
Thank you so much. I think my name is Alaj Suwari. I'm from the Zongo community in New York. I think this question is, Musa Fatau asked, is very important. In as much as we being Ghanaians in the diaspora want to vote, we should also be careful not to indulge in acts that will plunge our country into confusion. Because issues having to do with elections can breed violence easily. And diasporan voting can cause it if we don't do it right. In this case, I know, like Pastor Reverend mentioned, he said one of the ways that we can identify Ghanaians is through passports. Now, we all know how easy it is for people to acquire Ghana passports. And here in New York, we have a chunk of our population that came into this country through the back door. It didn't come through the approved routes. So now, if we want to identify Ghanaians by passports, if a Nigerian comes here with a Ghana passport, or a Togolese comes here with a Ghana passport, are we going to consider him? So I would suggest that if we can corroborate people's identity with the authorities in the countries where they claim and where they reside, it's going to work. And I know that if you are here as a Ghanaian and you want to put yourself in trouble, you wouldn't want to do that. So if somebody wants to register, and we let him know that we are going to cross-check your identity with the authorities, they will be very careful. So we have to allow people to get
More time. For time, talk more.
I wanted to clarify something.
Okay.
Now, no, we want clarity. We are not taking over, right? You talked about the fact that you want the let's say, the embassy to vouch for the individual, right? Are all Ghanaians registered at the embassy? No. Right. So do we then, are you suggesting that we make it part of the rule that all Ghanaians must register with our embassies? Those are the things we want to hear. Don't just give us general things, be specific.
Yes.
So the committee knows exactly what we are saying.
No, not just the embassy, the EC committee that is going to oversee the election should make sure that in order for somebody to be identified as a Ghanaian, your residence and your information is verified with the U.S. authorities. For example, the motor vehicle in New York.
Hold on a second. Well,
yes.
These are the issues. That's why we raise the issue of residency.
Yes.
All right. Do we agree then that we accept that the person must have a resident permit?
No, you should. No, it is not discrimination.
Those are the issues we want.
Yes.
Control, please. I said only 2 people. For this question, only 2 people. Apart from him, then the gentleman, then that's it.
This is a critical issue.
Yes. Okay, the next one, please. No, Abu, no. Your question, I have it.
Okay, I have something a little bit to add. Yeah.
Please identify yourself.
Okay, my name is...
Calm down. No, don't stand up.
My name is Francis Abanga.
Calm down. We want clarity in all the things.
Right.
Real and don't be anxious. Let's calm down. All right.
Okay, my name is Francis Abanga. I hail from Bolgatanga down there, and I'm the vice president of UPEC, Upper East Community, who are living here. So as much as I agree with my brother to some extent, but what we have to bear in mind is that every Ghanaian living here, you cannot be alienated here because you do not have papers, and when it comes to exercising your right of your birth country, then again, they are holding you responsible of American papers. That should not work. What we should work, or what we should look at is every Ghanaian who is able to cross whatever border to whatever country must possess a passport. And if you tell me that if I have a Ghanaian passport and I'm a Nigerian, that is not for me to verify. Whoever issued that passport, whether it's the Ghana embassy or they got a passport from Ghana, should have done all those due diligence. It is just the same thing if you have somebody in Ghana presenting a Ghana passport to register to vote. Nobody will tell him that he's not a Ghanaian, and we know that. So there's no way to seriously read all whoever claims to be what. But once you identify yourself, you are a Ghanaian and you have Ghanaian documentation and you identify yourself as one individual, you should be allowed to vote without a condition of whatever country you live and whatever documentation is pending on that country. And to the issue of residency, should also be established. So for instance, if I'm living with a brother or I'm living in my house or wherever I'm living, I should have some kind of bill or I should have somebody to fight for you. And I believe you guys do the same thing when you go to rural areas. I grew up in a village, a rural area. Nobody, even as of now, people are born without birth certificates. And I can verify that. However, when they attain the age, people verify for them because it's a community, everybody knows each other, and they are able to register. We should be able to do the same here and take away this idea of you have to have an American green card. American green card is not our thing. And if we do that, we are disenfranchising the same our brothers and sisters that we've been fighting so many years for.
Thank you. I'll add one more to it. Oh, that's it? Oh, okay. Kofi, what's in?
Madam, no, it's okay. But just to bring our mind, somebody asked about credibility of the register. So when we are our views, we should bear in mind that the propositions we give of the register.
Okay. No, but what he said in the first place is even assisted in
Ghana. So the issue that we are looking at is this. What are the things that we can actually look for? It shouldn't be maybe one thing. It really like verifying. And even in our registration, we have what we call the guarantors. If you don't have any of the requirements, you can ask someone to guarantee for you. So we can also look at that. So these are the things that we are looking from you, expecting from you, so that we can actually put them down together and then use them as a peculiar case in what do I use?
And briefly, like you said, if we do in Ghana, when we do the registration, people make a claim that somebody is not a Ghanaian. There is a process to challenge. And when we do it here, somebody has a Ghanaian passport, but we know clearly that this person is not a Ghanaian. There is a process. So it's not like, if we don't do that, people can just claim somebody. We've had instances, we did some exhibition of East. So we should remove. 3 days later, the person came that he wasn't there. So there are challenges in the process. So once we suspect, and the thing is that it's on us. This is a project for our country. So once we know for some mischief, we bring them. Therefore, I mentioned that in countries looking for people to constitute the Electoral Commission. If you know clearly that someone is a member of a particular party, and the person has availed himself for such an opportunity, we need to clearly let the person know that you cannot do it. And I think we owe it to our country to make sure that we do the right thing for the development of our country. And those are the things we expect. So we have a solution that this is the way to cure some of these mischiefs. Thank you.
Let me read the business system. A person who is a citizen of Ghana, resident outside the Republic, is entitled to be registered as a voter if the person satisfies the requirements for registration prescribed by law, other than those relating to residents in the polling division. This is the law. So the issue of citizenship and residency are two things in law that should be addressed. So those ones, we don't just gloss over them. Yes. So the first thing is, who is a Ghanaian citizen? 2, is the person really resident abroad? And how do you show residency? These are the two key things. Two different things.
Kathy, let us clarify what we are trying to do here, all of us. This is why I said, in a way, it is good that we have a working number. We are like a working committee, okay? So let us take advantage of their visit here. We have already fought over our right to vote. It's been given to us. So this is not the time to fight over it all over again. This is not the time to talk about whether Ropaa is good or bad for Ghana. We passed that. And Dr. Bosman said that, okay? They have traveled all this distance, their inconveniences, to get specific. So Kathy, hold those questions. Put out about 5 questions. We're going to take them one by one. And when we've exhausted them, we'll take the next one. If we don't finish tonight, let us take advantage of their presence and be helpful to them and us. And the last thing anybody should do is to suggest chaos that we shouldn't even do it. Please, if that's the way you feel, leave this room, okay? Because we fought hard to come here. You know, in Africa alone, forget about US and everywhere else, there are 25 countries that have overseas elections, and those countries haven't burned down. What makes you think the first one to burn down because they have overseas? In the they had overseas voting. Even in the first year voting, and those were not causes for even those countries that were. Do you know that Liberia has overseas voting, and they've been through what? The Ivory, right next to us, they have gone, and they had war before that. So let us bring our francophone countries up. But once we have that, then that question will be settled, because the process of obtaining that card, you have to produce whatever documentation to get it. And then this past September, I had a conversation with President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, just the two of us. And he said, Kofi, listen, I applaud you for all the effort that you put into Ropaa. But frankly, I have a question about it. I have discomfort. And I said, Nana, what's the discomfort? And he said, because we haven't settled the question about who is a Ghanaian. And it works in the Francophones because that president. And we haven't been able to do it. As I speak, less than 1 million people have the ID cards in Ghana. And elections are coming in December 2020. So are Ghanaians not going to vote because some of the are eligible to go don't have national identity? No, they are still other things. So what else do we have while we wait for the national identity card? The national identity card is the goal that we want to get, and we'll get there. But until then, what do we do? Well, here's a suggestion. In order for us, most of us, to get our dual citizenship cards, we have to prove that we are Ghanaians. Dr. Amalko, am I right or right? You're right. I'm right, okay. We have to prove that we are Ghanaians to get our dual citizenship. And it's the same Ghana. It's the same one element of the country. Whatever it is that the Ministry of Interior, I believe, the Ministry of Interior accepts from Ghanaians abroad as documentation to prove their Ghanaian citizenship and to be issued green card is the same principle that we should take, period. And then it is embedded in the law, because an arm of the government is doing the same thing. If they accept passport, whether it is active or not, then that's what we accept. If they accept birth certificate, then that's what we accept. Whatever they accept. If they accept, show us a picture of your high school days at Brigels, then don't laugh. I have to go through something like that for my wife here. Okay? And on and on and on. Whatever it is that they accept, of course there will be exceptions. And where there are exceptions, then we'll deal with it the same way that you deal with them in Ghana. If it takes having 1 or 2 people come to swear affidavit that they went to school at Tema Secondary School with this person, then we bring, but those will be exceptions. And those will address your issue about what if a Nigerian comes in. How many Nigerians are in this room? How many? Please raise your hand. The point is, they don't care. The people that we are afraid of don't even care. And the point that Francis made, Ghanaians walk across the Sahara Desert, get into rickety boats over the Mediterranean to go to Italy so that they can improve their lives and send money back home. Why do you then come up with a system to say that person should not vote because they didn't have documents? How could they have documents when they were going over the Mediterranean Sea? Okay? These are real issues. I have document in your handout that shows it was done by the UN. The numbers are underestimated, but still gives you an idea of, and we will talk about that in a moment, where Ghanaians are. And the number, you see a sizable number in Italy. And most of them will not have those kind of, but if you say that if you're going to apply for dual citizenship, show some document, they can write home and get somebody to produce some document, then that's what we accept. And then we'll go forward until we get to the national identity card. And then that will resolve a lot of these issues. And that's how we answer that question. Now, on the question of the residency. Yes, on the question of the residency, we got to be careful. Because when I read the law and I read the Ropaa, I'm not so sure that the residency requirement applies to Ghanaians living abroad. The word is used, okay, to describe a certain part of geography that you are not in Ghana. It doesn't mean that you have to prove that you are actually resident somewhere else. So I personally don't think that's a requirement. And if it were, we can answer that. And the way we would answer that is through beginning to help our embassies. These embassies and consulates have the responsibility to register Ghanaians. But Dr. Amakun will tell you, Ghanaians don't come to register. You do anything, if it's not a funeral. I was here last month, this same room, and the place was packed. The funeral about life. Okay? So part of this process will also help you begin to register. So it's not too far-fetched to also coordinate this process registration at the embassy, because as Mr. Tete, you know, it is through the registration period that you go through documentation. Yes? So we can include the embassy, but the embassy, since we don't have embassy in every city, they have to come up with ways where people don't necessarily have to travel all the way from Oshkosh to New York. Okay, and you can come up with how you can do some of these things by mail. So all of these things can be done, but my conclusion is, for now, let us work in tandem with the documentation that are used for dual citizenship registration.
Thank you.
I want to make a brief comment. Excuse me. Excuse me. I want to make a brief comment. The first time I actually heard about Ropaa and the court issues, right, I was like, God, these people are in for trouble. And the way he's talking is a reflection of what I... It is doing the right thing. The fact that I'm going to vote, you've given the opportunity, doesn't mean you shouldn't do the right thing. Do the right thing. Wait, what I'm trying to say is that all the African countries, I work with consultants from African countries, so I see these things every day. Senegal, that Dr. Bosman mentioned, one of our consultants is from that place. One of our consultants is from that place. So I know all the issues. So the first time I heard about Ropaa and the content case, God, they are in for trouble. I called Dr. Bosman and I said, I will be the first person to go to court, all right, to sue. And it was like, really? And I said, yes. If you look at the question that I said over there, most of you live in Northeast, let's say Northeast. You've not been to the South before. It's a different board. Elections in the South is different. So the point is, I'm asking, how are you going to deal with disenfranchisement? If, for example, New York, and I live all the way in Niagara Falls, voting is my natural right. It's not a human right. How are you going to get me to vote in Niagara Falls without transporting myself all the way down over here? Because when I transport myself, I'm incurring a cost. That cost is poll tax. These are the things that I'm saying. Maybe we didn't, Ropaa has done their best, but maybe we didn't do much research for other African countries. Ghana is not Senegal. Ghana is not South Sudan. Ghana is not Libya. Ghana is not Egypt. Those countries are not democracies. They are quasi-democracies. They are just pretending to be democracy. Ghana is the beacon of democracy. So we should make sure we are doing the right thing. People have fears.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Who wants to respond?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Please. Hello. I know this issue has been. It came up in our consultation, whether or not we can fulfill the granted to all citizens under Article 42 at one go. All right. Now, and the question of whether if we don't do that. Well, my simple response to that is that there are many fundamental rights in the Constitution, and none of them are fulfilled all at once, even the right to education. So and I can see, yes, people can go to court, but I can see the court responding in the same. But at the end of it, you still have to acknowledge the practicalities, the feasibilities, the resources. You cannot say that if it would destroy Ghana's economy in order for us to fulfill the rights in Article 42, we should force Ghana to use all its money to make sure that everybody all around the world in Ghana have to be able to vote, or we don't vote. So, be realistic. We have fundamental rights in the Constitution. And as you know, there is no order of rights in the 1992 Constitution. They are all apart. All rights in the Constitution are apart. But there are many rights, not because that people attempts fair trial, all of those things. It's because maybe resources, issues like that. So I think we should be realistic and practical about this issue, even if it's progressive, in the sense that you decide that you are going to do a number of cities. You are going to use a threshold, like many countries use. You start with that, but progressively you make it easier. If we get to a place where we can do postal voting, where people don't have to incur the cost that you're talking about, then we would have arrived there. So I think we should consider those kinds of issues when we're talking about how to fulfill the rights granted in Article 42.
Yeah, Dr. Asante, what's your...
Okay.
Please, if you meet a person, maybe an Asian holding a Ghanaian passport, maybe an Indian look, you can't challenge the person because the person is holding a Ghanaian passport. You don't have any right to say because it's an Indian, so it's not a Ghanaian. Now we have Indians who are holding passports because they are Ghanaians. Lebanese, Chinese. You see a Nigerian. Yeah, if you see a Nigerian holding a Ghanaian passport, you don't have the right to go and find that person. All that you can do is to maybe, if you don't understand, you can just talk to the embassy or whatsoever. So please, you have to be careful because there are a lot of Nigerians married to Ghanaians, and through that they have acquired Ghanaian citizenship. Another thing that we have to look at is our right, because we have the right to vote. Also, to vote doesn't bring ballot papers to my house. I have to walk from my house to go and register. But nobody will compel me to do that. It's a voluntary thing. We came here, we went upstairs, we told those out there that, oh, Charlie, we are coming down here to discuss, have this discussion. Some decided to stay, majority left. So you can't force people, but to vote or to come and register or whatsoever. Some people don't care. So please, but now the law says that we should go and implement this. So we are going to implement it. And because if we don't implement it, the man on the right-hand side is going to take us to court. And we're going to be in that trouble. So please.
In fact, what we should look at is, all the requirements that we have, like what he was saying. We have similar challenges in Ghana. Even if you bring a passport, if you bring an old ID card, age, and all, look at is ways of we have people who bring fake passports, people who bring even fake ID cards at the point of what? Registration. But the way we address it is through the challenge what? Systems. And that is what I think maybe we have to look at to address the systems also over here. Exactly like what Dr. actually said. Basically all the requirements. Then we go through the technical process.
Thank you. I have a question here from Alaji Baba Swari. It says, if Ropaa comes into force, do it mean that people in the diaspora can run for office or, can run for office?
I think Ropaa currently is about voting by people in the diaspora. It's only about voting. And you know, in Ghana, to be able to run for office, there are certain, if you are a dual citizen, you don't qualify. And some of you remember a former parliamentarian was put behind bars. And some of us have been advocating behind the scenes that what some countries do is to ask for people in the possible they can see work. So that we'll say, or out of the number of parliamentary seats we have, we are going to allocate about 5 or 10 for Ghanaians in the diaspora. People in North America, because of their numbers, maybe 2 representatives. People in Europe, because of their numbers, 3. In Africa, maybe 4. So that when those in the diaspora have issues, they know where directly to go to. But now, as it stands with our laws, we don't have anything like people in the diaspora, unless you are here and you are fully a Ghanaian. And in other words, you are not a Dua. You are not a Dua. That one you can go back and compete. So, but for now, you cannot. You can vote, but you cannot be voted for. And even internally, there are rules in place. You should have resided in a particular electoral area for some time. And even when you are transferring and you don't meet those qualifications. So maybe, Doc, another advocacy would be, should we allocate some parliamentary? Because at the Electoral Commission level, our thinking is that the number of parliamentary seats are so many. We don't want to even increase. But I think if there is a push for diasporans to have about 5 parliamentary seats, and those people do not necessarily have to be duals or people who are residing in Ghana. Just as somebody is a rep of Ayawaso West, you are also a rep of North America. And I think this is something we can begin from there.
Okay, thank you. This one, if I don't ask Abdullah, will kill me. I think this goes to Kofi Ropaa. Some of us have great concepts to help implement this act, and we are ready to support the committee of Ropaa, not looking for the Ghanaians with these skills to make the process smooth.
Let's move. That's
okay. Okay. Oh. The next one is no name. When does the nomination for election 2020 begin? Next one is, what is the process of the qualification of nomination?
Yeah. If you want to contest for presidency, you must be 40 years and above. Yes. And then you don't have any dual citizenship. Yeah. And then if you want to go to parliament, it's 21 years. Parliament is 21 years. Yes. And then you should also you shouldn't have dual citizenship.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, okay.
I want to play that because we need to take these answers. Yes. All right. The citizenship, I think we've said a lot. I think we've gotten some of it. The second issue we want to, where do we want to have our registration centers? Some of the discussions we've had and even from the 2011 committee, their proposal was that registration centers should be at the embassies. In some areas, people have raised questions that the embassy officials are political appointees. So what do we do with them? Others have raised the issue that there are career officers there. So we could use the career officers. We want to hear your views. Where do you want us to have the polling centers if we move outside Ghana?
Oh, a question right here, so please start.
Somebody is asking what is a CI. CI is a constitutional. When you look at the Constitution, Article 51 says that in the performance of its functions, the Electoral Commission will come up with a CI, constitutional instrument, which will regulate registration, the organization of elections, and even voting by proxy. So everything we do, we have some laws guiding what we do. So that's the CI. So if this Ropaa we are discussing, we are working on the CI. Once the CI is completed, it will come up with the rules. People who qualify to register. Which areas are we going to register? Are we going to say that any country that has about 500 Ghanaians, so the CI will come up with the rules governing the various exercises?
The three questions I have here has already been addressed.
Go back to their question. Yeah, go to their question.
Oh, okay. I'm just acknowledging that whatever I have in my hand is being addressed, because once you leave, I'll be hand. So I know it's been asked already, and you all communicate with them. So now registration centers. I'll go to Kofi Cranton. Please, short and spicy.
So, do I need a mic? So, this issue about venue for the registration, I think it would be, and this, quite honestly, I think this is one of the tricky parts that it can get costly, and it might have you have a different interpretation as to the cost going into this. But it would be a lot easier if Ghana government or EC can they can outsource this to a company like Person. Person is a testing center. I'm a securities agent. It's the most regulated industry in the country. When you go to do your certification for your securities, they have to look at your, it's fingerprint, they have to look at your eyeball. It's really ridiculous. So it also takes the responsibility away from the Ghana the embassy, and they can do their work, and it also frees the Electoral Commission. And it's a place where you could contract this organization to do the certification and authentication process for you. So you go in there, you have to show your ID. Once it's established by EC what authentication process it will be. You go in there, you certify, and you go in and you register. They will check everything. It's like going into a World Bank vault. You should go and meet them and see how that works. And they have testing centers all over the country. So I don't know about other countries, but in the U.S., for a fact, they have testing centers all over the country, and you could contract them to do the job for you and just give them the criteria for every person to meet. Now, real quick, going back to, I know Kofi Ropaa talked about the fact that if you are, we can use the dual citizenship process. The problem is, a lot of Ghanaians are in this country who really don't have a valid document, okay? So, but they're Ghanaians. So, it's going to be difficult. I'm a dual citizen, and I know how difficult it was to get dual citizenship, because you have to bring in your American citizen, you have to bring your Ghanaian passport, and they have to put all that together and give you the green card, which is the dual citizenship card. But if we can have also another option where if you don't have a valid Ghanaian passport because you came in maybe through a traveling card or something, or however you ended up here, you can be off. EC can give the guidelines or criteria to the mission for people prior to elections, go and authenticate yourself. You go through it. Once you authenticate it, you have your card or you have a number issued by the mission. So wherever you are, when the time comes for you to vote, you just show up with that authentication card, and then you go ahead and you vote. It's a lot simpler, easier for all of us, and it's less expensive too. So, consideration.
Thank you. We have 15 more minutes to close. Yes, it's almost 10. Yes, it's almost. Look at the time.
I have a question about the concept of registration centers. If it assumes that the other forms of voting has been cancelled out, because there are other voting, which is what you're considering. How about mailing? Right. So let me finish.
Let me clarify.
Mailing.
The current system has verification at the police station and the fingerprints. So there must be some means by which can be verified. That's the first thing we do.
And the reason why I'm saying this is, at the end of the day, you want to have an integrity of the election, and you want people to also vote. All the countries that Kofi mentioned, the voting, the external voting that took place, were not conducted by the Electoral Commission of those countries, with the exception of probably Senegal. All the other countries were done by international organizations, such as the International Organization Migration, IFES, International Federation of Electoral Systems. These countries conducted these elections on behalf of these countries, based on contract. So, and I've heard a lot of these issues that have been discussed. So mailing is one that has been done. In person, which is the registration, the polling centers, that's one. Faxing has also been done as part of voting. Proxy has also been done. And then by the internet has also been done, where you can mail your ballot box as an attachment to your email to whatever the center where the collection point is. So the point of it is, if you're saying that registration centers or the polling centers is the only form of way of identifying or authenticating this person, then we may be foreclosing some of the other ways of conducting this. So the second part is this. As I said, some of these countries where these elections have been done, the turnout has been terribly slow or low. Some of these issues that had not been addressed properly. So my suggestion or my recommendation is this. The Ropaa law itself, and you can correct me, no feasibility was done when the law was passed, I'm sure. Because a lot of these issues, over here, Congressional Budget Office, any bill or issue is cost out, reviewed, researched before it is passed. I'm not sure Ropaa, something of any form of feasibility study, it is even going to cost, or how it is going to be implemented was done. So if to do this, we want to vote in 2020 by law. And to make it happen, maybe we may need to, as Quentin suggested, maybe we need to find some of these international organizations, contract out the process so we can vote. And in the meantime, the Electoral Commission go through this process of ironing out some of these issues so that 2024, you can take over from this organization and implement it by yourself.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I can see that you have some fine ideas, but you see, regarding elections, where all things being equal, Ghana, and then in other countries as well, where Ghanaians live. Now, at the end of the day, I'm not sure the Electoral Commission is ready to banter with the citizenry in terms of accepting the results when it is given out to another entity, because the law stipulates that it's only the Electoral Commission that has a right to conduct the election. So the Electoral Commission will spell out the details, and that's the reason we are working towards it. Very difficult, in as much as it may sound very good in our ears. On the other hand, it will create a problem, I can assure you, because acceptability of the results is key, where you have people concocting stories already about who the amount company be normal punchy. Because if you are not in that terrain, you won't understand. But see, you understand it because of where you are coming from. But the old lady in my village may not understand. The moment somebody goes to them, tell them that this is it, the registration, please let me land. The registration was conducted by so and so organization, and it was fast. And at the end of the day, legitimacy, it will become an issue. And then accepting the results, can be a problem for us also. We'll move one step at a time, incrementally, coming back to look at the policy, the CI, as we have done in the past. We used to have opaque ballot boxes. Why do we have transparent ballot boxes? Because we realized that people were stuffing probably, that is a perception. You see, so all these things are factors, so that we must be careful when we are making suggestions. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to bring this issue back into the legal framework, because these ideas are fine. Currently, under Act 699, the Electoral Commission is given powers to designate a person or an institution to register Ghanaians abroad. So, yes, you can outsource, of course, taking into consideration Mrs. Arnold's point, that yes, you have the power, but you have to look at all of those issues. But the point is that there is a basic trust system that has been built from registration, education, during voting. That is why we have the biometric system, registration system. So that, and we have all accepted it in Ghana. So if you create a different regime for those regime, so because of the practicality of going, postal voting or some other, that itself can constitute some sort of discrimination. Right. So there has to be a basic integrity that even if you outsource, they have to go through the same procedure that everybody in Ghana goes through. So I think that has to be clear. Certainly, you can change the law, all right? You can go and make the case. If Parliament changes the law and says those abroad can be excused from doing biometric verification, then fine, that can happen. But as it is, as the system is, and as I say, it's a trust system. As long as everybody agrees that yes, whether you are in Ghana or you are abroad, you follow the same procedure, even if it's the U.S. federal elections that is conducted, and it is the same procedure that everybody follows. That talking about registration centers, I think there are. One is the Ghana Mission, where people have raised some issues with. Then there is the Senegal version of it, where you constitute an electoral commission, and then they appoint registration officers and returning officers and so on in a number of polling stations. All right. So that option is also there. Or you can even outsource to the country's electoral commission, which the Malians do, and so on and so forth. So I think we should look at those options and think about the ones that have the trust and the integrity. Because that is the ultimate way in which we can all then say the process is clean, fair, and we can accept the results. We are thinking of those things. We should really look. You live in the community. What is the one that everybody would be happy to go with? Then we can look at the practicalities of it.
Just briefly, just to add briefly. I remember when we went to Senegal, they said they don't verify you before you vote. And we told them that this can never happen in Ghana. When people have even been verified, they want to come and still. But please, let's be very clear. Our